run the vendor management organization. I was brought on board about 4 years ago to look at continued outsourcing of our infrastructure services, voice, and end-user computing. And we're fairly, I won't say mature, but certainly active in outsourcing both app dev as well as infrastructure and some architecture. We've gone through a couple of transitions. We were a Remedy shop, and then we transitioned to ServiceNow. And most recently, we've entered into, as you might have read in the press, a rather innovative contract structure with another supplier where it's fixed price all in and they own the environment. Now, the reason we moved from Remedy to ServiceNow, and I think the words of wisdom I'd offer there is make sure that do you need, can you work off a shared environment versus needing your own instance. And in our case, we thought we could work off a shared. It didn't work out. So we actually secured our own instance, although we've outsourced everything else to this other supplier. They have their own instance, which is going to sit as a layer on top of ours, and incorporate a number of the things that the Barclays gentleman identified as well. We're currently doing ITSM. That's what the supplier is focused on. But my interest is how can we continue to exploit, whether it be ServiceNow or the capabilities of ITSM, to look broader, go into the enterprise, go into app dev, go into some of the other areas that we have not pulled in previously.
Well, can I say why for ServiceNow? Why not do it into Salesforce or do it into Azure? Why develop the apps on ServiceNow?
I think part of this app legacy, and I'm not a tech guy or an app guy. Part of it is currency. When we have a new supplier, outsourcer, that is going to be responsible for it, the entire environment, including currency. So it's kind of, I'm not bothered by it anymore. We've developed the apps, and we've got Salesforce. We utilize Salesforce and other applications. So I'm fumbling a bit on an accurate response, but that's kind of the path we went down. We thought it was the lowest cost path at the time. If we could look over our shoulders, one of the things we might come up with is trying to realize maybe there are some other options and things. Folks like Capgemini, for example, as I recall, has put a lot of money into building on top of Remedy. So as that market matures, we'll see. But we are looking to expand and exploit, I think, as I've heard on the conversation today, and take us into some other new space. And we'll see how that works into our all-in pricing model.
All right. Frank, how would you describe the pricing at ServiceNow and the price to value if you were to kind of poll, management over at CNA Insurance? Is this a 10 and a great deal or a 1 and a terrible deal?
No, I think it's a good. I don't really segment the the ServiceNow from ITSM. I look at the entire bundled service and say, okay, this is one of the tools that the supplier would rely upon. Either we supply it or provide it, or they do. And I got to say, in terms of criteria, we're really focused on outcomes. And what is the total cost of our outcome? Again, we're trying to move to a new model where it's starting to look more like a BPO instead of an ITO. We'll go through selection criteria and demonstrate performance. And yes, we're very interested in the technology employed by the service provider, but that in itself is probably just one pricing point. So again, I kind of look at the entire bundled price and then attempt to unbundle it like anybody would in an outsourcing deal.
Okay.
I've got some real thumbs, and I really can't discuss on the phone, but I've got some notions about pricing that certainly was cheaper than, or it was subsidized by the supplier in providing us that license in order to get the deal. So that, in an outsourcing deal, that oftentimes getting down to the tool level or the software level is pretty difficult, because you don't know what's being bundled and what's being subsidized and what's being put on the table and what the pull-through might be assumed by the supplier to be on an ongoing services basis.
Frank, are you able to share with us who your outsourced partner is?
Yeah, it's public available information. It's Atos, the French company, largely, from our perspective, is a lot of the legacy ACS team. It's a new model. It's an outcome-based model, fixed price, all in, 6 years.
Got it. All right, very cool. Frank, thanks so much for joining here. I'm going to keep coming around the group. Let's go over to Chris Paschos, Director of Service Transition at Prudential. Hey, Chris, good to speak with you. Please, quick intro. Hi. Tell us a little bit about your exposure to ServiceNow.
Yeah, so I'm one of many business units at Prudential. I'm responsible for group insurance, service transition, but we also have ServiceNow instances for other business units, retirement, ILI, AIT, annuities. And then infrastructure support now is kind of the latest ServiceNow instance that's being stood up. So we do have multiple ServiceNow instances. We are going to look at consolidating in the future into one kind of shared service so we can have similar processes. Kind of everybody, all the different business units have slightly different ITSM processes. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, we'll look to consolidate and kind of standardize our processes around ITSM.
Got it. All right, and so let me start with that score. A 10 on price to value, or a 1 on price to value, or something in between?
Yeah, I think a 7 to 8 is probably. We're happy enough that we're expanding out ServiceNow to other business units and kind of using that as the model to standardize our processes. So obviously we're satisfied enough that we want to expand and continue to use ServiceNow for ITSM and kind of beyond it at this point. But to answer your question, I think between a 7 and 8.
I want to get your perspective on that, the comments that Tom and I were talking about at the very beginning, where it felt like the opportunity beyond ITSM was multiples larger than the initial kind of position that it has. Do you feel that at Prudential, that you start looking around security, HR, facilities, asset management, et cetera, that you really would look to ServiceNow as that kind of broad-based application platform?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure it's going to be 5X, like was mentioned, but I can definitely see expanding into other areas. My area is ITSM, so that's what I'm kind of focused in on. However, I know we're looking at, Lotus Notes replacement. We're looking at cloud and DevOps integration, HR. So we are looking beyond our current footprint to see if ServiceNow is the right solution as well. Project management, agile management, all that is kind of in play, and ServiceNow has solutions for that. And I think that I'm anxious about the new version, right, London, and to see what kind of functionality that's going to offer us for the cloud and DevOps kind of thing. So yeah, I can definitely see expansion beyond ITSM for sure. But I'm not sure if I would agree with the 5X kind of calculation.
Is it 2X or what? I'm just. I don't know.
I would say,
we need a number.
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
I would say 2X might be more realistic for us. Yeah.
What's in London, or what piques your interest on London?
It has to do with agile and DevOps integration, and we are looking to improve in that space and to be able to have that visibility of all our pipelines. We have a Jenkins environment now, and it's not the operational part of it is not there yet. So we're looking to see what kind of solutions we have that are out there that can really help that visibility and to be able to understand kind of everything that's in the pipeline. So looking at that, looking at the agile, and looking at change management and the integration of all that, and all that work, and to be able to give that visibility across the board to, different parts of the organization, I think will be really valuable. That's what's really got us